Robbie Venter, the CEO of Altron, here in studio. Welcome, Robbie. Good to have you here. So Altec remains a significant sort of drain on the group, the Diversified group, reflected in your impairments during this period. You've been busy with the turnaround strategy there for a few months now. At what point will profitability return to a more normal rhythm?
I think the key issue for Altec is to resolve the East African situation, and we are in discussions right now with various partners around partnerships. We are trading under cautionary, so I can't unfortunately comment too much on that, but rest assured it's priority number one from an Altron perspective to get those results on track, because outside of East Africa, Altec actually performed reasonably well, and our other two subsidiaries, Bytes and PowerTech, both grew headline earnings per share. So it's quite a positive impact if we can resolve those issues in East Africa.
You're on record as saying that you would like to see a merger of Altec within Altron. You're waiting for the right moment. What would that moment look like? What do you need for that to be a possibility?
Well, I think that, as I've said before, I think the South African market would see a one listed entry point in a more positive light than having a pretty confusing Altron owning 60-something% of another listed company. So we have to wait until it's a transaction that can be done in the best interests of both shareholders, the Altec shareholders and the Altron shareholders. And that's a bit of a balancing act. Clearly, from an Altron perspective, we wouldn't want to do anything that would be dilutive to our shareholders.
You talk about your African strategy being a conservative one. Is that strategy, that feeling, informed by your experiences now with Altec, or is it just your general approach?
No, very much. I think there's lessons that we've learned out of some of the troubles we've had in East and West Africa, and I think the lesson to be learned there is that acquisition strategy into Africa is a risky strategy. You can do the best due diligences in the world, but it does present some challenges. So I think we're going back to basics, saying that Africa is certainly a key market for us and a market that we want to have an active role in. We see growth opportunities there, but it's going to be a much more organic-based strategy. So exports out of South Africa, and in the case of Bytes, following some of our key customers. Bytes' biggest customers are the retailers and the banks. Both of them are expanding into Africa. We've got tried and tested relationships with them over many years here, and we can follow them and are already doing that. I think for Bytes, this first 6 months we had 155 million rands worth of exports into Africa, which was a 20% increase.
You talk about the challenges in the African region. Of course, South Africa has its challenges too, and we've become more aware of those challenges over the past week, the past month. How does that influence your decision making and also your strategy for the group?
Yeah, I think that the current labour unrest and maybe more specifically the strike action in the transport sector impacts on all South African companies, ourselves included. And we definitely saw some impact of that during the month of September, particularly with regard to not labour unrest. We haven't seen any of that spill over into our industry, but delivering products to customers. You have to be creative, you've got to be use different methods, you've got to deliver at different times to be able to actually get product to the customer. Inevitably there's going to be some impact on sales as a result of the disruption. In
your outlook statement you refer to the market saying there is growth in the local market, but you are also concerned about the global uncertainties. So you know, it's tough on all fronts.
Yes.
So looking at your global businesses, what about the Iberian businesses within PowerTech? We saw recovery in PowerTech, a lot of that from the cabling business, but the Iberian businesses, how's that influenced?
I think they're certainly operating in extremely challenging economic conditions in Spain and Portugal, but I think they've stabilized since the end of the year. We actually took some downsizing costs at our Portuguese operation, which actually provided us with a profit for the first 6 months. Spain was a little bit more challenging, but these are very, very economically challenged markets, and in fact our largest competitor in Spain has just gone into receivership, so it's an opportunity maybe for us to be the last man standing in that market and pick up some of the work that obviously they're not going to be able to satisfy. satisfy right now.
Yes. Now, on the Bytes business, the good news is turnover there is looking rather good. Turnover growth, revenue growth of 19%, but you say the margins are being squeezed. But for a number of reasons. One, that it's more competitive, but also that the IT sector has become more commoditized, cloud computing, all these factors. But I believe that you've also taken on some contracts, some licensing contracts, so that will push up revenue, but you're not seeing that coming through in profitability.
Yeah, we did see some margin squeeze at Bytes. Revenue was up 19%. The bulk of that was actually driven out of our UK operations, which, as you correctly say, is a Microsoft licensing business, which is lower margin, and so the mix had something to do with it. But even if you took the mix factor out, we still saw some deterioration in the market, primarily in our office automation business. So the focus for the future is really the old story: services, services, and services, and develop your own intellectual property, and in those areas you can defend your margin a lot better than in hardware or box moving areas.
And Robbie, going back to those elements that you can't control, the rand, a weaker rand, is this a net positive or a net negative for Altron?
Generally, it should be a positive for Altron, a weaker rand. Different parts of our business are impacted in different ways. Some of our businesses that import, like our Xerox business and our NCR business, obviously those imports become more expensive, and you have some challenges in passing those price increases on into the market in today's economic times. But businesses like PowerTech benefit significantly from a weaker rand. Basically, our exports are more competitive, and imports coming into the country from other international players are more expensive. And so net, a weaker rand is positive for Altron.
Well, Robbie, thank you. Thank you for coming in, and we look forward to seeing what you do in Spain.
Thanks very much.
That was Robbie Venter, CEO at Altron.